I know you probably didn't see the pictures, but the chap who was speaking for the Tories, James Cartlidge, has quite dark eyebrows and quite white hair, prompting one of my correspondents to describe him as a Timu Alistair Darling, which is just not fair. It is quite funny.
It's funny, though, isn't it?
It is funny, yes.
And it's a bit true, isn't it? Poor James Cartlidge.
Poor James Cartlidge.
You can't help it.
That was a bit odd, wasn't it?
That was a bit painful, I thought, actually. It was a bit awkward.
I thought...
Carnage with Cartlidge?
Well played. The conversation that we had while we were also listening, I presumed that he had something up his sleeve. You were right, he didn't. But I presumed that the only reason why he'd do all of his questions on can you guarantee that no other asylum seeker, 200-odd people were released by accident over the course of the calendar year, so it's not impossible that this has happened. And of course, some people care a heck of a lot more about asylum seekers committing crimes than they do about anybody else committing crimes, which is a conversation for another day. James Cartlidge is clearly one of those people. I presumed he was going to hit him with a thing he didn't know.
I thought he might use the final question to say, well,
it is outrageous that the Justice Secretary is not aware of Natasha Clark, recently released for hideous crimes. Yes, all of that.
Crimes against humanity. Yeah, absolutely. And he didn't. So was it just a case of him wanting to work backwards from the headline as sort of some people might think, right? So you say, could
there be a story about to break?
Maybe, potentially.
Someone gave the Tories a heads up? Why wouldn't he break it himself?
I don't know. It's a little
I'm confused. I'm genuinely confused. Doesn't often happen.
But maybe there is a story about to break and we don't know about it. Or is he just going on the fact that he's looking at the statistics and actually, according to the Ministry of Justice, 262 people in the last 12 months to March 2025 were released mistakenly from prison, and he thought, well, actually, since Kabatu's been released, there's a chance that one more has probably slipped through the net. It's up 128% increase on the previous year. David Lammy, to be fair, did not seem to be prepared for this answer, and as the Shadow Justice Secretary, you might expect him to have had an idea. Maybe one has been released and he just didn't want to say it, but he could not answer that question. So either
maybe he thought what we thought, which is it's not impossible that it's happened.
Exactly,
because
but he obviously...
It's been going on for years. It's been going on forever. Numbers are up this year, but there was a particularly hideous example back in 2019 where a bloke that was accidentally released under the Tories went on I don't know quite how to phrase it, but a rampage of rape. It was a hideous crime. I remember it fairly well, not well enough to remember his name, but I mentioned it to you a moment ago.
Joseph McCann.
Joseph McCann is the guy I'm thinking of.
And yeah, it's fair to say this is something that's happened under the last Conservative government. According to the figures that I remember from Number 10, I can't find them when I was just doing a quick search, but I think I recall that a Number 10 spokesperson told us a couple of weeks ago that they believed that at least 800 under the last Conservative, I think it was 14 years of government, were mistakenly released. So this has been something that goes on all the time. And David Lammy's did not know, so that's not a fantastic look for David Lammy. It felt to me he was a bit underprepared for this Prime Minister's questions, actually. I didn't feel that the fact that he's going on something which actually he could have gone on anything. James Cartlidge could have gone on defence, which is obviously his strong subject, but not David Lammy's. He could have gone on, the economy. He could have done anything that he wanted with this session. And actually, he did choose to go on something that David Lammy should know a little bit more about. And I thought that David Lammy's sort of third or fourth answer to him, where he said, "This is because of all the mess you've left us behind. The public are concerned. This has been a shameful spectacle of what they left on his watch. Rape victims waiting years for their justice." That was the answer I really wanted him to give a little bit earlier on in the session. And he did have a punchy answer, but he did not have an answer to that crucial question, which James Cartlidge used all of his questions on, all 6 questions, asking him, can you guarantee this or not? Yeah. And was I don't know if I'm wrong on this, but was it at the start, can he guarantee whether anybody has been released, or was it specifically
No, it was specifically asylum seekers.
I remember that being the case on the
That's why I thought he's got something up his sleeve, you see. Yeah. Because if he said us anyway, he said, I can't guarantee that because the system we inherited is an absolute mess.
And that would have been a fine answer to have, whether you agreed with it or not.
Watch this space.
He didn't seem to know.
It's just name-checked LBC, apparently.
I see.
This might have been a miss here, but we shall find out why. Unless it's embarrassing, in which case we'll completely ignore it and pretend that this part of the programme never happened.
He also started with that story, which actually LBC spoke to the father of someone related to the father of the victim of the Epping migrant sex attack last week, where they said that they didn't have an apology from David Lammy, and they were upset that they hadn't heard from the Justice Secretary after the release of Kabatu.
Well, personally? Yes. Like a phone call?
Yeah, as in I think they had heard, I think, that he had been mistakenly released. I think the family were told, but they were upset to have not heard from David Lammy personally, not upset to have not got a private or a personal apology. David Lammy says, I did stand up in the House of Commons and I did apologise, but the family were quite hurt about that, and they felt that they hadn't been in touch with enough people in government. So that was what he was referring to at the very start.
261 other families in the course of the last year equally entitled to be upset, of course.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But I thought, David Lammy's sort of, obviously, he's added Weetabix, didn't he? He was very punchy. Get a grip, man. The investigation into Kabati's release on its way, saying that we're going to leave them to do their job. He's obviously, and has, to be fair, put in some incredibly tough checks into the justice system in the last couple of weeks. Many the Prison Officers Association and some others are quite upset because they feel that actually is putting the burden too far the other way. They're saying that each check before a prisoner's release is going to cost them an extra 45 minutes of time to do. David Lammy has been absolutely adamant that this is something that needs to be done to stop more people being mistakenly released. And I guess we'll see when the figures come out in another sort of 6 months, year or so, whether it's made any impact or not. But, it's fair to say that it has been going up and up, and this is something that David Lammy is actually doing something about.
Indeed. And then Daisy Cooper, doing something that I suppose a government it's easier in opposition, isn't it, to tilt at a windmill like Elon Musk, but they probably would have done in opposition, and it is therefore slightly troubling that they are not doing so in government. But the state of Twitter and the increasingly unhinged interventions of Elon Musk in our public discourse, I don't know how it can continue in its current form, and it fell to Daisy Cooper to raise the point.
Yes, she did. So she raised China, she raised threats posed by Elon Musk. She asked, when will the government act? But I didn't really hear an answer from David Lammy. And actually, when our colleague Lewis Goodall was speaking to John Healey over the weekend on this, he also pressed him about Elon Musk and the government's sort of thoughts on this. And John Healey got quite I think, a little bit frustrated at the sort of line of questioning. It's not for me to comment on Elon Musk and what he does, but it's fair to say that he, is having an impact on democracy here in Britain equally, and he's sticking his oar in a lot, isn't he? And like I say, many people, including Daisy Cooper and others, having real concerns about that. Daisy Cooper also raising the cost of living crisis, talking about the elephant in the room, really, of Prime Minister's questions today, about which James Cartlidge didn't mention. Taxes, the budget. That's what everyone's talking about all week, whether the Chancellor is preparing to raise them. Of course, David Lammy can't answer because, well, firstly, he doesn't know, and secondly, they haven't decided yet.
And thirdly, they never do. No. I mean, it's a weird little political tradition that whoever is in opposition lambasts the government and badgers the government for straight answers to questions about what's going to be in the budget, and whoever is in government responds by saying, we can't possibly tell you what's in the budget until we tell you what's in the budget when we do the budget, or we brief journalists shortly before we do the budget, and but until then our lips are sealed.
And the media,
and they all do it, and yet they all do the opposite as well.
In that case, I do think that probably Keir Starmer probably shouldn't have replied to, as we were talking about last week.
Yes. That one time.
Mate, you could have really, it's a bit of an own goal to think that she wouldn't use those words against you at some point if that indeed was what you were going to do, even if you had no idea whether you're going to do it. Commenting on a budget, then not commenting on the budget as you go on the run-up to the budget, probably not a fantastic strategy. But yes, don't think that would have gone down particularly well. But I kind of thought that maybe the Tories would say, well, actually, last week we forced the Prime Minister to refuse to rule out the fact that there's tax rises. Rachel Reeves has given this big speech where she can't say what she's going to do. She's saying she's all going to hit us in the wallet. This is what we told you would happen. And none of that today at all. So maybe we're saving that for when Kemi Badenoch gets back.
Are the Liberal Democrats still on Twitter?
I believe so, yeah. As in the Liberal Democrat Party or Ed Davey?
Yeah. I mean, Daisy Cooper, you can't quite have it. Can you have it both ways?
It's a good point. Ed Davey is definitely still on Twitter because I was looking at him earlier. I'm not sure about Daisy Cooper. I think the party still are.
No, if Ed Davey is, then my point stands. Yeah. You can't be pointing out how toxic and anti-British it is without leaving it, really.
Or you could say, well, actually, I'm having the argument. I'm having the argument on the platform, and I'm taking the fight to them.
I suppose you could, but the government is the only body that can actually make a meaningful change.
Yeah, well, to be fair, she said, when will the government act on this? It wasn't clear what she wants the government to do to act. I don't have the answers. I don't know what Daisy Cooper's proposed response is. But it's fair to say that it's a topic that gets many politicians quite worried. David Lammy, in his answer, talked about when he was Foreign Secretary, the national security strategy, etc., etc. They set this country in the best place possible to face down these threats that she refers to. That's not quite what she meant, really, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, will it clip up? Well, I'm just trying to work out why James Cartlidge pursued this curious line. Answer number one is because something's about to come out that will turn it into something that it wasn't, something that it isn't yet. And answer number two, it's going to clip up really well. We underestimate talking about Twitter and how racist it is. David Lammy is black. Him not providing a clear answer to a question about evil immigrants, which is how Twitter would absorb this incident, could work well for them on there, but I don't know that it's going to win over any new supporters.
I think you worked backwards from the headline. I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Is Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary cannot promise or cannot reassure public that no prisoners have been mistakenly released in the last 2 weeks.
But he can make a phone call when he gets back to the office,
to say,
and then he can.
He could, yeah. But is it your favourite phrase that the lie gets around halfway around the world before the truth comes out?
Yeah,
potentially.
well, it wouldn't even be a lie, would it? But I'm confused about that. I mean, it may be that it will clarify and it will make a lot more sense in retrospect shortly, or it may be that it remains a little bit murky with these various competing theories as to why it happened. It will work well on social media. It's embarrassing for David Lammy not to be able to answer a question that he hasn't got the specific answer to yet, but he could have 10 minutes later, or some other theory that may move into the space available.
Question I think he should have had the answer to, and I think it does make him look a little bit on the back foot, even if that wasn't the intention. Coming to Prime Minister's questions, you do need to be prepared for absolutely everything to be thrown at you. And like I say, this was on his patch. He should have had an answer ready to go, and he didn't.
And by the time James Cartlidge chose to ask the same question for the sixth occasion,
yeah, someone could have passed him a note.
You'd have thought there would have been a note saying you're fine on this,
exactly.
or you're not, just put your hands up.
Yeah,
or maybe they did and he didn't.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Pass something to him saying, this
Donald Rumsfeld Tribute Act, known unknowns, unknown knowns.
But he would have had a section in his, briefcase in his notes on specifically this, on the justice brief. And, he's well versed at standing up in the House of Commons week in, week out, talking about how the Tories left us a really rough justice legacy. And I'm just surprised that he didn't go in on that earlier.